Friday Night Stars, presented by Whataburger. Whataburger's Buffalo Ranch Chicken Strip Sandwich is back. 3 chicken strips, signature buffalo sauce, and buttermilk ranch. Available for a limited time.
It is week 10 of this high school football season, and it's time for another edition of Friday Night Stars, brought to you by Whataburger. Happy Halloween, everybody. As we've decided not to go with costumes.
I was about to say, I was like, we talked about it last week. We could have very easily shown up in costumes and been ready to go, but you know what? It's fine. We got to go. We got to get home to trick or treating.
We have our sportscasting costumes.
Yeah, we're pretending to be somebody that knows what they're talking about. That's what it is today.
That's what we do every day here. We're pretending. All right, big slate of games. It is week 10. That means it's the second to last week of the regular season. And how about we kick it off with one of our Whataburger games of the week, and that would be this one. Oh, I know you can't wait to talk about this one, Kyle, but hold on just a moment. The Walnut Grove Wildcats at the Melissa Cardinals. First, let's hear from Walnut Grove head coach Dusty Ortiz.
You heard about the Big Four in our district. You know, we have a 9-team district, and you've heard about the Big Four. You heard about Melissa and Anna and Emerson and Lovejoy, and you know, we just want Walnut Grove to be part of that conversation. We want to build our program that so every year when the district comes out, they see Walnut Grove and they're like, oh man, that's a good program, and that's what we want to build it towards.
And how big is this game? Well, it got even bigger last week when Walnut Grove knocked off Lovejoy 41-37, coming from behind in the final minute of the game to do it. And Melissa, a team that has become a perennial power, is right on the cusp there. They may not make the playoffs if they can't beat Walnut Grove.
Well, this last week is what turned this entire district on its head. And I think Tommy Allison may watch the show because we've talked about it. Big Four, Big Five teams. This is one of the best districts in all of Texas high school football, and there are 5 legitimate programs that can make a run. If you haven't watched the show before, go back and we'll go deeper into it about it. But last week it was the fact that Lovejoy fell to Prosper Walnut Grove, and then the fact that you had a team like Melissa fall to Emerson, who was on the outside looking in last week. Now it's a big jumbled mess. And give credit to Coach Allison. I think the fact that you look at Walnut Grove, the way that they did take care of business against Todd Dodge with that high-ranked offense, and they put up 41 points on a defense and 600 yards on a defense that hadn't necessarily given up numbers like that all season long. That's what he wants to do. He said establish the program, start presenting some fear. Walnut Grove has done that, and they've established themselves as a legitimate power.
Second year of existence, went 3-7, not playing in a district last year, and if they win over Melissa, they in all likelihood are going to win the district championship because they now own the tiebreaker on Lovejoy.
And that's the thing, Melissa's kind of fighting for their own lives at the same time. 5-3 on the year, they're 4-2, currently sitting in third place. If they fall to Prosper Walnut Grove, Emerson owns that tiebreaker. So then all of a sudden you're on the outside looking in, and they have only 1 game left against Denison. At that point in time, it may not even matter what happens because their own destiny is not in their hands. Melissa's been a team that's had their destiny inside their own grasp throughout the season. That's starting to slip away as the season comes to an end.
There's 5 teams competing for 4 playoff spots in this district. You got Walnut Grove and Lovejoy tied at 5-1 right now, and right now Anna and Melissa tied at 4-2. But as you mentioned, Emerson at 4-3. They've got a bye next week. They would have the tiebreaker on Melissa if they wind up tied at 5-3.
It is a phenomenal district. Phenomenal district.
All right, let's move on to District 6-5A Division 1, and the West Mesquite Wranglers for the second straight week are featured this week because for the second straight week they're taking on an unbeaten foe in their district. This is essentially the district championship game against the Newman-Smith Trojans.
Yeah, and last week West Mesquite showed that they are the real deal, taking down that Creekview team that we talked about. Great story. They had come into the year losing 20-plus games in a row, and they turn around and they start the season undefeated. Well, West Mesquite said, I don't care about your story. We're going to run the football, and we're going to continue to do it effectively, putting up 48 points on the board. They've scored at least 40 in every single game since week 1 this season. This is a high-flying rushing attack. They're balanced, but they do rely on that ground game more than anything, and they're going to have to do so against Newman-Smith. Newman-Smith might be the best defense they've played in district play so far, so expect this one to be maybe a little bit lower scoring, but still a team in West Mesquite that has the ability to put up some points.
Yeah, and when you look at West Mesquite last week, they got out to a 28-0 lead on Creekview the first quarter of the game. Newman Smith has a running back in Elijah Harrison who received an offer from Tulsa this week, and he's the big threat that the Trojans have on offense. All right, let's move to Class 6A here because there's some intriguing matchups for playoff positioning, and one of them in District 5-6A here, the Louisville Fighting Farmers against the Denton Geyer Wildcats.
Yeah, lots of talent on the field in this one, and I know you, Bill Jones, have your eye on a couple of Oklahoma commits one way or the other. Denton Geyer's quarterback, Kevin Sperry, 6'1", 200-pound, 3-star Oklahoma commit. He's playing up against an offensive tackle that might be blocking for him at Oklahoma as a 5-star commit, and Michael Fasusi on the opposite side for Louisville.
Let me interrupt you for just a second. Oklahoma could use Michael Fasusi on their offensive line right now.
Yeah,
forget about next year. Right now, he needs to get to Norman.
Might as well. 5-star, 6'5", 295. Both of these teams, the first thing I put on the table is size. They are built in the trenches and they dominate up front. They do like to establish it early and often. I really like Louisville in this game because they've got a little bit of a speed factor that's under the radar. I think Geyer's probably the deeper team and they have more depth across the board. Denton Geyer Wildcats, they've been the deep team and the deep program of the last few years, but Louisville has some extra speed built in there to go along with that size. That's when things can get a little dicey for the Wildcats.
And Michael Odell's done a great job with that Louisville program, and they are a team that runs the football, and they're doing it very well this year with Tennell Hill.
He's a great guy, too. He's a player's coach. Guys love playing for him. He gets the best out of his guys, and I think that's what you need when you have the physicality up front and the rushing attack. It's not always flashy. You don't get the highlights. You don't get the fun stuff on the news at night because you're going 5 yards in a cloud of dust at the high school level, but you win football games, and that's what the Louisville Fighting Farmers have been doing.
And, of course, one of those Louisville running backs, Damian Martinez, is now playing for the U. Got another one, Byron Ellison, who scored a touchdown last week for another Hurricane team, the Tulsa Hurricane. And by the way, hats off to the Coppell Cowboys, who are champions, going to be champions of District 5-6A.
Man, Coppell's a different animal right now. I know they're not necessarily on the rundown, but they continue to throw the football. That might be the most electrifying and efficient passing attack in the entire Dallas-Fort Worth area. The fact that they're able to piece it together, I know Duncanville's still here, don't get me wrong, but the fact that they do so efficiently and they complete over 75% of their passes, that's a great mark from the Cowboys.
Speaking of Duncanville and DeSoto, they are the powers in District 11-6A, but I love the matchup this week as Lancaster travels to Waxahachie, the Tigers against the Indians, and these are two teams that are jockeying for their playoff positioning as well.
I had the opportunity to see Lancaster in week number 1 of the season, and there was a lot of hope around this football team. Actually, this game right here, North Crowley in the Jerry Jones Classic that was on NFL Network. The fact that they had a lot of hope, and they've kind of lived up to that hope in a tough district. They're 4-1 in district play, currently sitting in 3rd. If they win this week, they will be in that playoff spot, whereas Waxahachie is 5-3. On the opposite side of things, they're in 4th place trying to catch up to Lancaster. So they need a win more than anything. And this is a Waxahachie team that does a lot of things well. Scoring points is not necessarily one of them. They've got a great defense, but they've won their last 2 games with only 24 points against Cedar Hill and 16 points on the board against Skyline last week. That's a Skyline team that Waxahachie should be far and away better than. That's not necessarily the case, but they still find a way to win games. It's going to take another gritty type win over Lancaster if they hope to make the playoffs this year.
And leave it to me to point out there is an OU commit in that game too. Emmanuel Choice, the big wide receiver for Lancaster.
He's fun.
By the way, Oklahoma could use him right now as well.
They could use a lot of help.
They could use a lot right now. All right, we continue with Friday Night Stars in just a moment. We turn our attention to the showdowns at the Star when we come back.
This segment was brought to you by Whataburger. Yes, it's true. All new iced coffee has officially arrived at Whataburger. Stop by and enjoy one today.
Time for the showdowns at the Star starting on this Halloween night. Kyle Youmans not calling this game because he is going trick-or-treating with the triplets right now. Reedy Lions, Frisco Raccoons. More on that in just a moment. But then Friday night, Youmans will be in the building to call this one a big matchup in District 7 4A Division 1. The Aubrey Chaparrals and the Panther Creek Panthers. Just how big a matchup is this, Kyle?
Yeah, it's a big one. Two teams that are in playoff position as they speak. Panther Creek, who lost that early matchup in big-time fashion to Salina, who's kind of running away with that district at the moment. Clint Surratt's team has kind of settled down. They've played better football as of late, and they've found some rhythm on offense. Aubrey on the other side, they are all offense in what they bring to the table. The Chaps bringing Brock Temple, who's completing 50% of his passes, 1,900 passing yards, 26 passing touchdowns, and he can run the football, plays both ways. He plays as an edge rusher on defense as well. Kind of a fun combination and a good game to look forward to on Friday.
And I'm looking forward to this game tonight. Reedy against Frisco, and let's hear from those Reedy Lions.
Feel pretty balanced from a run game and a passing game standpoint, and it just helps us, on any given Friday night where they can't take away one specific area of our offense, and we have something else that we can go to try to put some points on the board.
Just as offense, I feel like we're dynamic. All three of our receivers, you can't pick and choose one of us. I feel like we'll go against any secondary, and the same thing with our running game. It's something we've always been strong in, even last year. I feel like we're just dynamic offense that can beat you on any side of the ball, any way we want to run it or throw it.
We play with our heart because we know it's our last season, so we all put a great effort into. The identity is for Reedy football is to work hard and just play through the whistle, give 110% effort, and just play as hard as you can.
We're just blessed to have hardworking kids, and they're competitors, and I think we work on that competitiveness in the off season, and just any given night, any one of our district opponents can compete, and so it's just competing every day, and competing with yourself, making sure that you're giving your teammates your best effort because they deserve it, just like you want out of them their best effort.
It's a highly competitive District 5 5A Division 1. Another matchup here. Reedy, tell me about this team, because Chad Cole, it seems like year after year, Reedy has a team that is competing for a district championship.
Yeah, no doubt. And they've got a couple guys that they can really rely on. Jake Ferner at quarterback is taking care of the football, and he's really spreading it out to a multitude of weapons. I really like Tristan Airy. You saw really clip after clip of him taking care of business against Wakeland earlier in the season. That was the emphatic win that they've had to this point, 35-0 over a Wolverines team that is starting to pick up some steam as the year comes to an end. But they've got a big test next week against Lone Star. Lone Star falling in week 9 was a big win for Reedy, because now if Reedy takes care of business and they win that football game, then they're the district champions outright, and you get that #1 seed moving forward.
How wonderful a game was it to call on last Thursday night, I wonder, when Wakeland played Lone Star in this district. How about we talk about it next? We're going to hear the call of the play of the year in high school football, maybe in any kind of football, when we come back.
This segment is brought to you by Whataburger. Whataburger's Buffalo Ranch Chicken Strip Sandwich is back. 3 chicken strips, signature buffalo sauce, and buttermilk ranch. Available for a limited time.
Trying to put it on ice. Hoyt will push to the 5, keeps the pile rolling, keeps on rocking. The ball popped out. Wakeland's got the football. They've got a return at the 30 with blockers up in front. Austin Wilson. He's going to take it all the way back. The Wakeland Miracle inside Farm Center. The craziest play you will ever see. Wakeland was dead to rights, and they win it in overtime.
It's the football return heard round the world, and Kyle Youmans doing the honors. Last Thursday night, the showdown at the Star, a 59-59 game in overtime. Lone Star has a chance basically to kick a field goal on the next play and win the game, or whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
And Wakeland takes it the other way.
That's all they needed. They needed Carice Hoyt, the sophomore quarterback, to go down there, because they had a goal line stand just before that in the first possession of overtime. And of course, in high school overtime rules, it's very reminiscent of the old college overtime rules. You share possessions, If there's no points on the first possession, the only thing that Lone Star needs is a single point. They need to just kick a field goal and it's done. So if Hoyt hits the ground, that's what Jeff Rayburn and his Lone Star Rangers were going to do, is just put it away, put it on ice, and instead 100 yards to the house. An unbelievable ending to what was already an incredible game.
You told me even before that it was one of the best games you've ever called.
Yeah, if it didn't end the way that it did, it probably would have been a top 5 game I've ever called. It had 1,100 yards combined between the two. Of course, Lone Star, the number 2 team in the state in terms of 5A Division I rankings. Wakeland had already lost 3 games, the equivalent of what they had lost all of last year. Not the team that not the season the Wolverines had expected to have going into 2024, but they came out firing from the opening kickoff, really from the national anthem, Bill. It felt like there was an energy and aura in the building, and then it was back and forth. Ryder Treadway, that guy, number 8 in the Navy, he was fantastic. He finished with 9 receptions, 131 yards, 4 touchdowns. Wakeland had 3 different 100-yard receivers. Carice Hoyt had 3 touchdowns through the air. He had a couple touchdowns on the ground. It was just a back-and-forth affair that looked like it would never come to an end. And then it went into overtime because that touchdown right there put Lone Star on top, their first lead since the second quarter with 40 seconds left. Wakeland drives down the field. They kick a 43-yard field goal as time expires in regulation just to put it in overtime. And then, of course, the goal line stand from Lone Star at the beginning of overtime, setting up what this play ended up being the craziest ending you will ever see at the high school football level, maybe even in football in general.
And there he goes one more time. Hey, you want to do the call one more time?
Austin Wilson off to the races. I'm not going to have that emphatic of a call because it's not actually happening this time, and I know the ending. The Wakeland Miracle. He's going to take it all the way back, and they win it again. 65-59, the final in overtime.
Oh, my. The excitement is in the air. That's what you get when you go to these showdowns at the Star inside Ford Center. All right, when we come back here on Friday Night Stars, some of the top running backs in the Metroplex.
Friday Night Stars, presented by Whataburger. Yes, it's true. All new iced coffee has officially arrived at Whataburger. Stop by and enjoy one today.
Welcome back to Friday Night Stars. Happy Halloween, everybody. Bill Jones along with Kyle Youmans as we are getting you set for the second to last weekend of the high school football regular season. I did mention earlier in the show that Kyle is going trick-or-treating tonight. You got triplets at home. Yep. What are they going as tonight?
So we're going Toy Story themed today. So we've got Woody, Buzz, and Jesse from Toy Story.
All right, very good. And what are you going as?
As one of the aliens. We've got the whole makeup. It's basically just a hat that I'm going to put
Okay, all right. Okay, so
I got to hurry over
before Kyle heads that way, let's look at some of the top running backs in the Metroplex in Class 5A. We mentioned him earlier in the show out of Newman Smith High School. Elijah Harrison leads all the running backs in North Texas in Class 5A with 1,366 yards and 20 touchdowns. Check out some of the other names on that list.
Yeah, this is an incredible list. And anytime you can see a running back with 20 touchdowns on the ground, that's impressive. And not only do you have Harrison, you also have Cam Newton. Not that Cam Newton, of course, but he's playing very well for Prosper Walnut Grove. Part of the reason why they are up at the top. Greg Ard is closing in on that 20 touchdown mark. He's going to be playing up here in Frisco this week as well over at Toyota Stadium. They've got a matchup along with the Heritage Coyotes. So Aiden Poole, you've seen them. We just talked about Wakeland. He was a huge reason why Wakeland was able to win that game against Lone Star as well. Good running backs across the districts, across the DFW Metroplex. Of course, you've got a Heisman candidate right now at the running back position that's coming from and played inside this building at Ford Center at the Star, and Ashton Genty. The tradition of running backs still strong in North Texas.
And in our final seconds here, I want to give a shout out to Sam Harrell at Ennis.
Yes.
Sam Harrell is retiring. Of course, he's been battling multiple sclerosis, one of the true legends of high school football coaching. He announced it this week. In fact, Ennis is hosting Mesquite Poteet on Friday night. That will be the last home game for him. And then they will conclude the season next week. But what a great man Sam Harrell is.
What a career and what a legacy he leaves behind. Of course, his son Graham Harrell going on to do great things in the playing and coaching world as well.
All right, happy Halloween once again, and we will see you again next week on the next edition of Friday Night Stars.